Databricks. So basically, so Databricks is a cloud-based technology platform where we can orchestrate everything. So basically, let's take if you have any idea in the Hadoop, right? Big data technologies, we have Cloudera, Hortonworks, and Mapper. There are like different distributions we have. So we need to have a cluster. We need to set up everything. So to connect to Hadoop cluster, we need to have Unix environment. There we need to install basically all like Spark, Hive, everything. You need to install, and then you need to connect, and then it's a big like a commercial process. So to avoid that, Databricks, came up with this technology, where we can orchestrate everything. Basically, it's a kind of informatica or like ETO. So where you can extract the data, transform, and load into different sources. Similarly, sourcing different sources like Teradata, Vertica, Cobol. So it supports different kinds of sources, basically. So here, you can schedule the jobs. You can store some data. So you can create some workflows. You can create a Hive databases. You can create its own Delta tables. So it provides all flexibilities. And on top of that, it can run on multiple like cloud platforms like Azure, GCP, and AWS. So so with this in keeping in mind, I'm going to present what we are doing in AT&T currently. So here we are using Databricks on top of AWS basically. And apart from that, Databricks supports multiple languages like you can write your own code in Python, Scala, and different languages. So that is one of the flexibility we have here. So let's start with uh, one simple notebook. How can we create, and then how can we run some simple commands? And then we'll move on to creating some sample jobs. So here, if you go to the Databricks, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We can see.
Yeah. So if you go to the new, there is a notebook, right? Here, every in Databricks, we'll play here basically. So you can rename here some nest. So here you can run anything, whatever you require. So here, let's yeah, so this is one of the command, we used to, get the permissions for the particular role. So example, if you see, I'm using here non-prod customer product. So in AT&T, there are multiple data hubs like account, billing, customer product, Salesforce, call center CRM. Like there are different data hubs, each team is working. So to provide access for that, they have come up with different roles for each hub. So if you want to access the data for customer product, S3 buckets, you need to assume this role basically. So to run this command, right, just you need to press Control Enter. So this command will run here basically. So here, if you see, there are like one more option here. So there we have different clusters. So the DTV CDO platform, based on your project, you can select your cluster and then you can run this command. So here I'm selecting this DTO CDO platform and I'm running this command. So here it will tell you whether it's our command is successful or not. So suppose example, I put here some invalid keyword, then it will say false basically. And then if the role is not available, right? So it will give you the status whether it's a command executed successfully or not. So this one, and here I created the different connectors basically. First thing how to connect to the Snowflake. So to connect to the Snowflake, right? Basically we need to have that Snowflake URL, and then in Snowflake, right, there are different One is the database schema, and then what is warehouse. So all those things, we need to provide here. So basically, this warehouse is nothing but a computing capacity. So based on your data needs, whether it's a small cluster, big cluster, or large data, so you need to request admin to create those warehouses for you, and then you need to put it here basically. And then here you're telling you need to use target schema. Basically, in the database, right? It's a very high level data architecture, so where it will have all the tables basically. So under that, there is a concept called schemas. So these schemas are nothing but stages where we have uh, stage schema, target schema, UMT schema. There are different regions they have created basically. So in target is nothing but once we processed all the data, the final data which is consumable by business, we need to put it in the target. And there are like another one stage schema, which are like internal tables or intermediate tables where you use your for internal purpose or like intermediate purpose, which to process the final data. So that is one thing. And there is like one UMT table, UMT schema, that is nothing but one-time load. Basically, you load one time and then you use the later purpose. Kind of, it's a lookup table. So those things, you put it here, and then this is the role. They'll have some. So in Snowflake, you need to execute some queries, right? So whether you have read permissions or execute permissions, delete permissions, all those things will be defined in the role building ETL. So those things will be defined. We'll give in the dictionary format, and then those things, we will give it to the Spark API here. So this is the one query. Actually, I'm executing on the account table. So that's why I gave all my account credentials here, basically. And then this is the syntax spark.read.format where we are reading Snowflake. Suppose if you are reading from some other some Teradata or something, or like from some Parquet format or S3, so you can put your format like CSV format, and then corresponding options and then path. Suppose in case of CSV, you need to give your CSV path. Here, since we are giving Snowflake, which is a database, I'm specifying here the query here. So when you run this command, this is how basically it shows here. So this is a kind of one command notebook. We can use it here. And similarly, this is where we can read Parquet format in S3 basically. So similarly, we need to provide all the credentials here. So basically, since all these things we need to provide. Why? Because I need to, since I'm reading data from S3 and then writing to the target in Snowflake, I'm giving my Snowflake details to you. It's simply, if you're reading from S3, you don't need to provide all these things. Just you need to provide this assume role, since this gives access to the customer product. Since you're reading the customer product data, so you need to assume this customer product role. So that is for this S3 reader, and this one is a Teradata reader. So this one has more options here because Teradata has better optimization. It performs very slow when running queries. So I provided all these different options here. We use the like fast load, to read the data faster here. Similarly, this one is basically a COBOL reader, where when we read the data from mainframes, the data will be in a fixed format. We cannot read using CSV file. For that, we need to create a sample copybook, so which will define what is the column length, and then where is the delimiter, where it the row ends. Those things will be specified in the copybook basically. So let's I'll show you some sample copybook. Yeah, so here if you see, this is the copybook where we have, it will start with the high level, it's a root column. So under that, we divided into multiple columns here. That means the first column, it will end, it has x of 8. That means length is 8. And then second column will start from 9 and it has a length of 16. That means it will end at 14 basically. And then the next column will start at 15, and then it has a length of 30. So basically it will have around like 44. This record length is 44. So this is how we divide it, and then we give that copybook path here. Basically, as I said earlier, here we can specify different formats. So this is the COBOL format. And then I gave this copybook path here, and then where I'm loading this data, basically where the data resides. Once I read the data, and then I'm doing some operations, and then I'm loading into the Delta table. So here, in while writing the data, right, in Databricks, there is a separate format called Delta format. So in Hadoop, basically there are different formats like Avro format, ORC Parquet. Each one has different advantages based on our necessity. Suppose if you're doing more worried about space and more about updates, then you go for the basically for the Parquet format. Similarly, in Databricks, they have come up with its own format called Delta format, where you can do optimization is done, and then you can update all your things here. So it provides even compression here. So that's the use of Delta format. So these are the different connectors we have here. So now I'll show you next one how to create some workspace. So in any project, right, we have the data in some Bitbucket or GitHub, anywhere we have the data, right? So from the data, we will pull it here into our local, and then we will run it, and then we will submit the jobs. So similarly here, so to do that, we need to create some workspace. So we need to go to here. We need to create a repo. So this is the code cloud link. We got it from here. So when you go here, so yeah. So whenever you want to clone the repo, right, you need to go to the Bitbucket and then you need to get this link here basically. So once you get this link, you come back here and then you give the code cloud link here, and then your provider should be a Bitbucket cloud, and then you can give your own repo name, and then when you start creating, right? So it will take a couple of minutes, and then it will pull all the data into your Databricks environment. So using this path, whenever we create jobs, right, we refer this code here, and then it will start executing basically. So let's create one sample job. Yeah. So far, any questions? Anybody? How to run notebook or? Hello.
Yeah, hi. I have one doubt. Like
Yeah,
we
sure.
just use a cluster. So cluster is so we can choose any cluster, or every cluster is dedicated to a particular team.
Yeah,
Let's say
basically you
we
can
have,
use any cluster, but no, your team will tell you. Suppose here, if you see, this means I have access to all these cluster, and I can use any of this one basically. Suppose currently I'm working on commercial analytics. Since I'm working on this one, I need to select this one. Since even though I have access to this data platform, yeah, it's better to use your own project cluster.
okay. So I mean, and for you, I mean, you can use multiple, but for us, we can have some dedicated cluster, right? Or we
Definitely,
also
yes,
have,
yes, yes.
okay. And
So
this
those things, right?
IAM, yeah,
Yeah,
and
go.
this
Yes, sir.
this IAM rules we have to run whenever we want to run any notebook. We have to run this command for every iteration. IAM
Yes.
rules.
No, no. For the first time, you start right. That time, you need to execute, and then it will next time onwards, it will automatically, use that one.
Okay, whether we will out from the database notebook or whether we will out from session, it doesn't matter, right?
Right, right.
Okay.
Suppose if the cluster that somebody restarted, right? Again, you need to assume your role basically. That means it will remove all the cache, right?
Okay, got it, got it.
So
And I
if you see
believe you will
here,
share, sorry to cut you, sorry, and you will share all the standard templates like you shared Teradata connector, SF
right, right,
connector.
right.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, I have a couple of more connectors I have created, so I'll share all those details. Yeah. So basically, if you see here, there are like different clusters, right? This is a common cluster where we can use for batch jobs. And if you see, there is one more cluster with data platform without CP. That is basically for the streaming data. So if you use Kafka something, right, we cannot use our regular batch clusters. So that's why, they have created this CP cluster. So this has some separate settings for that. So we need to use this cluster basically. So whenever you get some work on Kafka, so ask your admins, don't create normal cluster. You need to ask them which supports Kafka basically. Okay, so let's create. So yeah, we'll go to catalog. So basically, catalog is nothing but so each if you go to Unix, right? Unix have some its own local space, where we save the code or some data to copy the files, right? Similarly, catalog is nothing but where data like Databricks has its own database file system called DBFS, which is similar to HDFS, right? So if you want to put some code or some anything, right, you can create your own folders and then you can keep the code here. From here, you can move it to S3 or some anything like that, you can do it basically. So that is the advantage of DBFS basically.
It
And
is same
similar
as
to
HDFS, right? Like where we can place
HDFS,
our
yeah,
file
Hadoop
and we
file
can read it.
system basically.
Okay, fine.
Or like a Linux local directories.
No, it's not a Linux local directory, but it's a mounted basically on top of local basically, which acts
Oh,
as a DBFS. It's a
okay.
mounted workspace.
All right.
And similarly, it has its own, we can create all our Hive tables and we can access those Hive tables using the SQL editor basically. Either using SQL editor or like, in the same notebook, right? Here you can, previously we create one notebook, right? So you can come here and you can use percentage SQL and you can use a select star from this Hive database and then the table name. So if you use this syntax, right, it will read the data from the Hive table. And if you want to read the delta table also, right, similarly, same syntax, you can use it. Delta dot, and then your path, you need to provide the delta path. Yeah. So this is the syntax to read from the Hive database and then the delta table. Suppose, if you have the Snowflake data, right, as I said before, we have the connectors for that. You need to use them and then read the data. So that's how, we need to read it. So this is the catalog, and then the workflows is nothing but once you create the job, right? So you can see all your jobs here, along with you can create a new jobs. So basically, let's create one sample job here. So if you create any job, right, in real time world, right, you need to provide some parameters, right? What is the run date you're running? What is the source? All these things, you need to provide, right? So similarly here, we need to provide our jobs here basically all this entire like the details. So example, I'm creating one sample job, right? This is my task name, and I need to specify whether it's since we are executing notebooks only, right? Since our framework is created like as a notebook framework, so we used notebook. And similarly in the workspace, whether we are using workspace or Git provider. So since anyway we have both Git and workspace, but we imported that in our local workspace, right? I'm giving this workspace. So in the path, right, when you click this one, it will pop up this one, and then you imported the code to here in my workspace repos here, and then so framework deploy kit. This is the one. Yeah, so let's click on this one. So since it's a master repo, right? Since it does not have any code inside it, so it did not pull anything. So let's go back here. So you need to change this one to dev branch. So then you can pull your code. So dev. So if we see here, the all the code, which is pulled here. So here, if you go to so once you get this one, right, you need to set up your keys basically. So if you see here, yeah, so these are the things, you need to. Yeah, so you have the keys, right? Once you get this one, you need to go to the secret setup, and you will get to know all these keys from. You need to set up all these keys. So when you like basically, you need to generate the token, and then you need to paste the value from here. So basically, this is. Let's see.
So is this same as AWS secret keys or something
Yes,
else?
yes, yeah, basically the same thing. Yeah. So when you go to your Upstart, right, here, you can see your password here, and this password, whatever you get it, right, you need to provide here basically. So that's how whenever you run your program, it will authenticate using this token. So once you put this token here, and then you need to set up your own keys and own keys, then it will identify based on that. So your key should be basically your ID. And then you need to generate your own password here, the secret, and then the token you copy from Upstart Pro, right? Once you get this one, you will run this notebook simply. So then your keys will be saved, and then so you're good to start your this program. So this is where you have all your code. In this, our main program will be core router. From that is the entry for our program. So whenever you specify your path here. So basically, you need to give your core router as the main entry point. Yeah. So this is your core router, and then you need to select this one. So once that is done, you need to select your own cluster. So it depends on the project, and I'm selecting this one. And then our task name should be just some sample. So just you create. Yeah. So here, if you want to specify any parameters, right, you can specify basically here. So what is the key for that one? App ID. And then, so you'll understand, when I open some one sample JSON. So in ETL Direct, everything, whatever we run, right, that is through the framework. Suppose, you have some requirement. Basically, right now we are reading from COBOL Reader, right? So that's one is supporting. Suppose in future you want to read from some visa files or something. That framework is not supporting basically. So then you need to inform that framework team on this Venkat and Raghu. So those guys they'll implement this in the framework, and then they will give us the code basically. So you need to import the latest code, and then you need to use it. So that framework, what it does is, I'll open one sample JSON how our framework works. So this is one, yeah. Okay. So this is one sample JSON. So the main key parameters here is, right, this is the app ID. So whenever you're running your fake code, right, so you need to pass these parameters. That's how it identifies your job. So app ID, you need to specify the parameter, and then for that value will be customer product. Suppose if you're working on account or hub, your value should be ACCT account here, basically. Like this, you need to put it here. So since I worked on this customer product, so I put this as my application ID. And that is one. And if another parameter should be this source ID. So in one application, there are multiple projects. Example, so in customer product, there's a data hub, right? Under that, we have uh, subscription like from SDMS, we have enabler, we have Evergen. So there are different sources we have. So for that, we need to have the source ID. So this is how your application, your framework identify proper path for this one. So this is how our structure of this one. Basically, if you see here, this is the customer product, right? This is our application ID. And then, so this is our source ID. So whenever it has to identify your code, right? Basically, this config path is same for everything. And then under that, it will go to this data hub. Under that, it will go to your particular project, and then it will identify the this whatever you specify the part, like table, like whatever it is here. So that's how we need to specify these are the two critical values. So whatever you put it here, those values should be present after config or the here. So that's how your project will identify, framework will identify it. And then so here we are specifying start at, right? This means our framework will start from the COBOL reader. So here, if you see here, task is a folder where you have different tasks. Basically, we want to do it. Suppose if you specify COBOL reader, right? So if I want to start my program, suppose if you want to start this one at a Snowflake reader, right? You can specify Snowflake reader here. So then what it will do, directly your program will skip this one and it will come here in the Snowflake reader. So this will use for some testing. Suppose uh, this is taking, you don't want to skip this one, you don't want to alter your JSON, remove this one, right? So in this case, just to keep this one as it is, and then your starting point, change it simply. So that's how you can skip some steps. So that is one, that is the use of this one. And so this one, what is the target? Like, what is the use of this source means? You want to load it to the Snowflake, basically. That thing you are mentioning here. So here, multi-source means, so you are reading data from multiple sources, like one from Teradata, one from Vertica, those things. If you want multiple readers, then you can specify through this one. So here in my case, I'm reading only from COBOL reader. So that is the thing. And suppose if you are loading the historical data, right? You don't need to specify all these incremental parameters. For now, you can forget it. So whenever so you want to load it the data once you read from COBOL, and then you want to do some transformation and load it to the final Snowflake, right? You need to provide all these. What is the database? What is the schema? What is what compute capacity you want to use it, and what is the role of this one? So this gives the permission, and remaining all are like Snowflake database, those things. Yeah. So coming to this COBOL reader, once it is there, if you see here, this is the next means once this completes COBOL reader. So what you want to execute? So you want to execute COBOL reader, sorry, Snowflake reader. So in Snowflake reader also there is a next step. Next in that you specify some like SQL transformations. If you see here, this is one more task. Similarly, once you complete all the transformations, you want to load it to the Snowflake target. So here, if you see here, so once that is done, you want to end it. So basically, if you see here, in Snowflake target, after that, I have a couple of the steps like Snowflake curation one like that, right? I don't want to do the curations. That's why I simply put it end state. That means this program will end here basically. So that's how you can play with this next with the next. If you whatever you want to execute, right, you can put simply on that. So in COBOL, in this COBOL reader, here, since we are reading from COBOL, we need to provide the copybook path. So that is this one. And then what is the data location for this one? So, and in this path, there are like example in one path, in SMS in subscriber service daily, there are different feeds are there. Some UNL files are there, some LOB files are there, some DAT files are there. So I don't want to process all the files. I want to process only UNL files. So that's why I put this pattern as the UNL. So it will pick only those UNL files. And once after that, you want to archive this data or not? No, since I don't want to archive, so I put false. If you put it true, right, then all the data will be moved to the archive part basically. And then what is the what is the role you need to use it? Billing. Basically, the data example, if your application is customer product and your data is also in customer product, right? Then you don't need to specify your role basically. But if you see here, the data is in billing path. So that's why you need to specify your role. So whenever your application and then whenever your source data, they both are in different buckets, then you need to specify your what is the role to read the data here. So once you create that one, so you need to create some temporary view because you need to create in Spark, guys, right? Once we create the data frame, we create some temporary view so that will access the table and then we can perform some SQL operations, right? So this framework entire was designed to play with the SQLs. So that's why we created this SQL view. So this SQL view we use in our subsequent steps, and then we read the data from this one. Yeah, and then these are all remaining COBOL parameters. We use it. So, and then this one is the Snowflake reader. In Snowflake reader, similarly, we create the temporary. Once we read the data, we create the temporary view, and these are all the source table I required. So once after this done, right? See in SQL transformations, whatever all the views I created, using these views, I create joins here, and then the final data I load into the account subscription prod of fact stage. So that is the Snowflake target step. So once that is done, I have one more step called the Snowflake curation. This simply, performs only on the Snowflake. Suppose if you want to have join from data from Teradata, one from Snowflake, right? You cannot do in the Snowflake curation. So those things you need to do in the SQL transformations basically. So if you want to perform some any update operations or any insert operation within the Snowflake, then you will go for the Snowflake curation. So why I put in after Snowflake target, once I performed all the joins, I load it to the Snowflake. So now all my data is in Snowflake, basically the intermediate stage table. So this is where I have my intermediate data. So that's why I have the Snowflake curation. Suppose if you have multiple Snowflake curation steps here, right? So I have one more curation, basically Snowflake curation one. So thing is here, right? Here, since I have all Snowflake curation, right, I can put it here as well. So, but to make to make process simplification, right, I divide into multiple Snowflake curation steps. I created one more task and then put it. So anything is fine. Either you can put all curations in under Snowflake curation, or like you can divide into multiple Snowflake curations and do it. So once that is done, you want to update your checkpoint. So this is basically to resume where you left it basically. Suppose yesterday you loaded the data from yesterday, right? So if you go to there is a table called watermark table. So when you put it update checkpoint, right? So it will whenever your application start, you run the job. Basically, it will read the data from based on your application ID. So in your case, it is a customer product. Example, I'll put it here. This is how it reads customer product. Where and your source ID. So based on your application ID and so there's a unique combination, you will get one record. So based on this one, it will pick up this one, this date. So what is the first and last successful start checkpoint means? Our program completed executed for 512, and then you need to execute whenever next one happens, right? It will run for the 513. So those things you can specify here basically. So if you, as I mentioned, these are the incremental properties, right? So whenever you run the data, so I'm saying increment data by 1 and then save it basically. So whenever it completes, right, 512, it will add one date here and then save in the 513. Suppose you don't want to run for 513, basically after 512, you want to execute for 612. So that means what it will do, you need to put here as a 30. So if you want to load in the batches, basically some historical jobs or something, you can put 30. Then what it will do here, right? Basically, if you, it will take as a 630. So whenever your program starts, right, next time it will start from 613. And then once it completes, it will save here as a 613. And then your next run will be 730. So this is how our watermark, this is basically to store the last successful run date. So that's how this incremental parameter works. And for the first time, example, whenever you deploy the code, right? This one, this record you manually send it to your admins so that it will save your start point and end point. So that when you load a historical data and you trigger incremental job, it will pick up corresponding data and then it will pull the data. So we keep our end date as a high end date because we should not, it won't start once your end date is greater, the start date is greater than end date, right? Your process won't run. So that's why we keep end date is always high basically. And then this watermark format, we keep as YYYMMDD. If you see here, this is the same format. 2023 is a Y, and then M is 06, and then date is 13. So that format is specified here. If you want to change it, you can put it like this basically. So like this, you put it, and then the corresponding data will be saved in the corresponding format. So that is that. So whenever you want to update your checkpoint, right, last successful run date, you need to specify the next one as update checkpoint. Suppose in case of historical data, you don't need to check any, you don't need to save that, right? So you can directly ignore this one. You can put directly end state. So this end state is nothing but some dummy task which does nothing, and which indicates that your program is end, your framework, thinks that it's the end of your process. So this is about our framework, just one COBOL reader framework. So any questions on this one?
Yeah. So I have a few questions. So this
Yeah, sure.
JSON should be filled by the application owner, or the framework team will do that, and we will give some information.
Suppose I'm the framework developer. You are the basic application developer.
Yeah.
So you what is your requirement? Basically, tell me. You need to read data from basically Snowflake example. So I'll give you the sample JSON. So you can put your Snowflake reader here. You need you will fill all those details and then you create your own JSON basically.
Okay. So application owner, application team will use JSON as per your format, and you will put this JSON in your framework, and accordingly it will work, right? All the
Right.
required details and all the watermark table insert detail will automatically done by the framework. I mean, you
Right.
configure it. Okay.
Right. You need to worry about only just this thing, this part.
The
So
JSON.
all these watermark tables, everything, right? Whenever they set up this customer product data hub, they'll create all these watermark tables, everything.
Okay. So application team will have only view access for this watermark table, or they don't have any access.
No, they have access. This watermark table you need to play whenever you migrate the production, right? You need to change your the start and end points, right? Suppose example, you need to run old days basically. Suppose my job 1010, right? I saw some last 5 days data is wrong, and then you want to reload it basically. So in this case, what you do, you will go back to this one 2023 10.5. 2023 10.6. So that means what it will do, right? What it will think. So 2023 10.05 is a successful end, and then you need to run your program from 10.6.
Okay.
So that's how they'll give all these write permissions to this watermark table.
Okay.
So you need to change this one.
So Raghav, this JSON will have all the data, right, which we need to read it, right? So from here only we'll be creating another query which reads data from this file.
Right, right.
Okay.
So how you know? So since I worked from like last 2 years, I know all these parameters, right? So if for any newcomer, right? So this is the one framework JSON dictionary. So here you have all this. What is the use of each one? Like what is the source ID? All these things. These are job level parameters. And then coming to the example, you want to read data from COBOL reader, so Teradata reader. So what options you need to specify here? So those things will be specified here, basically. So let's open. I have one Teradata reader. JSON. This is what. So if you have a Teradata reader, right? All the parameters, you can go here and you can specify here. Example. Yeah. So in Teradata URL, right? What you here you'll have all those parameters. Example. Where is URL? Yeah. So the first step is Teradata URL. So I specified in my code Teradata URL. What is the driver? Example. Next one is Teradata driver, and then Teradata mode, Teradata TCP. So all these things will be here basically. See. So these are the Teradata properties. So all these properties and then corresponding keys like variables, right? You can copy here and then you can paste it here. So I'll send you this sheet as well, this JSON dictionary. You can look into this. And if any questions, right, always this framework team is there available and they'll immediately respond basically. Yeah, for the first time, if you look at it, this like looks complicated, but if you like used to it, right, 1 or 2 times, then it's pretty much simple basically. It's basically like copy and paste it. You got it, right? How our app ID and then source ID, they are related.
Yes, yes, yes.
And here, if you see, there is one property called ENV, right? ENV UAT property, right? So this one, whenever, especially you want to use the production data in dev environment, you need to use this environment variable, basically.
Yeah, dev UAT prod like.
Yeah, normally, in dev, if you go to the Snowflake, basically, you can access only dev Snowflake, dev data, right?
Yep.
But if you want to test your application with production data, so then you can set up this environment, basically. EAT, that means it will access production data.
No, how, I mean, if I'm running my application in dev, so until I don't have same copy of data from prod to dev, then only I can access. I mean, I cannot access prod data from dev environment, right? I should be
Right,
on.
you can access. Yeah, that's why if you see here, so this is my dev database, Snowflake. If you see, I have account, right? Account is dev, the account EAT is production. So
Okay.
similarly, billing underscore EAT. So what it does, right? Whenever you specify EAT environment, so it reads from instead of billing, right? It will read from billing EAT. That is our production data.
Is it production data or production environment too?
It's basically the production data. They created some view here, basically.
Okay, okay. So prod data in UAT.
Right.
Yeah.
Product in UAT database.
Okay.
So what is happening, right? We have data in dev, we are testing this working properly. But when we move to production, right, we are getting different data, like, the format is different, length is different. So that's why we are
Happen.
failing. A lot of applications were failing. That's why we want to test it with production data. So they came up with this one EAT schema.
And
Raghav, is this UAT database is continuously being updated with latest prod data?
This EAT?
This UAT database, like account UAT, fraud catalog UAT, is this every day getting updated with latest fraud data?
Right. So they don't update, but basically it's a view, right? So it automatically reflects the new data.
Okay, it's reflecting, right?
Yes, it's up to date always.
So is it some partition or some partition of a table or all data, whole data from prod?
No, it's a whole data. There is no filters, nothing. All the data, whatever we have, right? They create a UAT. Yeah, since this is not like more secure data, right? So they might have created like this. In real time, but this won't happen like in other healthcare or financial, those things, right? They don't normally give this kind of permissions.
This watermark table only have 5 columns, like
Yes.
app ID and name, table name,
This
and
is
last.
unique whenever the new entry comes, right? Your new source ID comes, right? Then it will automatically increment by 1. It will have 10, and then a new row will be added here.
Okay. So let's say being an application developer, if I want to get a control table, in control table, I just want to store the count as well of my table. So either I should create my own table for controlling
Yes.
purpose, or we can propose you guys to
So
add.
you want to
in your
control
format.
what you want to control basically?
Yeah, start and time and
Yeah,
data
here,
count.
right? Yeah, these are the start and end points. Basically, if you want to control your start dates, and then you can play with here.
Okay, and
Any
what about
which
the
is like
count?
end checkpoint, right? That is your start date, basically. Whenever I run this application, right, it will start with 2023 10/6. And once after completes that, right, it will save 10/6 in the last successful one, and then new date will be saved here, which is like whatever I incremented by 1, right? It will increment by 1 and then save as 10/7.
But it will not suffice my requirement. Let's suppose I just want to check my job execution timing from start to end timing. Let's suppose my SLA is 1 hour. So I want to keep my job start time should be in 1 hour only. Because here I can see the 1 day difference in start checkpoint or end checkpoint.
So you want
I
to
want
run
to,
your job every 1 hour? That's the requirement, basically.
no. My requirement is, let's suppose my job is running 1 hour. I want to just control my job timing only. What is the start time of my job and what is the end time of my completion of job, along with the count of my data in particular
No,
table.
this is not basically your stat table, basically how long it is executing, right? So whenever your program starts, suppose it is reading from Teradata. So even though your job runs 1 hour or 2 hours, the source data will where data equal to this one only, it will pull it up, pull, right?
Okay.
So this one basically to read the data from the source. So I'll show you what I mean. Saying. Target hist. Yeah, BL1 RC rates. Yeah, if you see here, this is my vertical query where I'm reading the data. So here you specify the low water mark date basically. So when you start your program, it will come here, it will take this date, and then it just it will put here, and then to read the date.
So it's a creation date. Okay, so create date as greater than equals to this date. Okay.
Right. Once this completes, you need to run again 10/7, right? So again, when you run tomorrow, it will have as a 10/7 basically. So then that date will be picked here, and then particular date will be read from the vertical.
Okay. Okay. Oh,
So it is irrespective whether your job run 1 hour, 2 hours, right? Yeah, if you want to run for like every 1 hour, right? Basically, you can go for the streaming basically.
okay. Streaming. Mhm.
Yeah, in that case, we don't have any checkpoint kind of table for the streaming jobs.
Okay. Okay. And in which language you have built this framework? PySpark
Yeah,
or something?
everything is Python.
Okay.
So I'll show you one. I have one Kafka thing I built. Yeah, Kafka JSON flapping. Yeah.
How old this framework is?
Oh, sorry.
How old? I mean, when did you develop this framework?
Yeah, this is a continuously evolving basically. So I did basically this Kafka like POC and then handed over to the framework team. They implemented in the code basically.
And whenever any change, let's say any weird new
Suppose if you
data,
have a
new
new
problem.
requirement, right? Basically, example, currently, if you want to implement some regex,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so that is not there basically. So you need to raise a request to the framework team that I don't have this feature, and then what you'll expect. Okay, I'm expecting this in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then based on that they will implement it.
Okay. Understood. Yeah.
Yeah, this is once we read, right? So there is some checkpoint here. In Kafka itself, there is an offset. It will save it basically.
Yes. Offset.
So
Yeah. Offset and
yeah, you don't need
couples.
to basically specifically say that if you see here, there is a checkpoint location, right? So automatically it will maintain all the checkpoints. What is the last read record? All those things will maintain here in the checkpoint location. So if you want to
Yes.
reset something, you go to the checkpoints and then like point to the correct offset. It will read from there.
Okay. Is that own in Kafka cluster own maintaining offsets, topics,
Right,
properties?
right. So far all things we discussed about the bad jobs where it runs every day or like every week or something. Yeah, but here this one is like it runs continuously every 10 seconds or 15 seconds. So that's why if you see previously we used to use a df.write, right? But if you see here, if we used write stream, basically, it's a streaming one. Similarly, we have read stream.
Yeah. For Kafka read and write. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So here you can see everything here, all these parameters, all these things. But these are all the tabs are nothing but your tasks, basically. SQL transformations, Kafka reader, COBOL reader. These are all your tasks, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, any questions? So you understood, right? Pretty much whatever we discussed.
Yes, Raghav,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, this is all
Yes, sir.
actually pretty much we are doing here in Databricks. What please let us know if you have any questions, right? Ping me or like if you want like we can schedule one more call basically.
And how we schedule jobs here? I mean, do you use the help of database scheduler or some other orchestration tool?
Yeah, we have basically here stars. That's one like scheduler they're using. So I'll
So
explain you that maybe that the process as well that let's take so once you know you're ready with code, right? So what you need to do here, basically you need to create one CR like this deployment list. Basically, let's now open the latest one. Okay. So this is first one is your application ID, like a customer product account or billing. Next one is the whatever the job you want to create it. So this one, and then what is the JSON name? Basically, this job name and this is the job name, right? And then this is the JSON name. So they both are same except this keyword, this customer product DB, customer product and demo DP. So other than that, the remaining everything will be same. So and then what is your cluster? This one, what is the policy and what is the size of the cluster? So these things actually, whenever you're first time you're migrating the job, right? So you'll coordinate with your data admin like Pawan, and then he's going to give us the cluster and set up all the policies for that. Example, whatever the whenever you create your job in dev, right? All those things you keep in mind, keep a note of it. Example, you're using Teradata, right? So the same thing when you are migrating to production, tell to Pawan. So based on that, you will create the production policies for this. Otherwise, right, if your job works in dev, when it migrates to the production, right? So this cluster won't support that one basically. So that's why you need to note down all the things you fixed in dev.
so this is a one-time activity for Pawan for any new application, right?
Right, basically, yes, yes. Because you need to set up secret keys, those things, right, for your application. So first time, once you've done this one, then from the next deployment, you'll be good. So when this one you give it to right when customer like this production deployment team, so just simply they'll run this one using this. They have some code. It will automatically creates this job basically in stars environment. That is stars is nothing but their job scheduler.
Okay. So any date, timing, or if you want to should give, so in how we can give all these details, scheduling timing, let's say first month, first day of the month or second day of the month.
Okay, okay, got it. So whenever you specify, right, we have some HLD document.
Okay, oh, we have a certain templates. Okay.
Right. So in that, you'll go whenever you go for the review, right? They'll ask all those things, what are the dependencies for this one while setting up that star job. So they'll create all those things. Yeah, here you mentioned all your dependencies, your job timings, everything, you mentioned in the, yeah, those things I can share. I have a couple of deployment documents I have. So this is how happens. Once you want to move the deployment, right, you need to give your jobs to the stars team. So they will run the job like 2 times, like one today, one tomorrow, and then they'll give you go ahead.
Okay.
So first they will set up all those things, all this one in dev, and then so as you requested, right? First they'll set up in dev. Once you migrate this sheet to production deployment team, the same job they'll copy to the production.
Okay.
So basically, this is how. So once you create jobs, right, you'll get this job ID. If you see here, this is the job ID. So they'll ask this job ID, and then the stars team will run it.
So this job ID will be specific to environment. Like for dev is different, UAT is
Right,
different.
they will right. So remaining things star stream will take care of it, basically.
So staff team is taking care of all the deployment activity, change request, cap, everything.
No, star stream responsible for this this only jobs creation. That's it. Deployment is something different. So they will verify first. You need to get the code approval. So whether you are meeting all the standards. So example, right? Here, in the JSON, you gave your custom prod and then application ID, right? So based on this one, everything your framework will work. So if any of this one, suppose you are giving example, by mistake you give like this, right?
Yeah,
This one will fail because
correct.
your
Yeah.
those things they will verify in the code check.
Okay.
So
So
you need
is
to
there
get
any
approved.
any tool? Is there a tool or manual check? How they
I
check?
think they are
Is there any
doing some manually right now.
okay.
Yeah, basically, if you can do some Jenkins process, right? Yeah, they can automate this.
Yeah, Ajit Jenkins. Yes. Actually, I'm new to
Yeah.
AT&T. That's why I'm asking
Yeah,
these
but they
questions.
are, if you join deployment call, right, everything, suppose you have some CR, you join, right? They'll run this manually. For each project, they'll change these parameters and then they'll manually deploy the code.
With the help of Jenkins, we can do automate and put all the
Right,
standard checkpoints and it will automatically
right.
take care of this.
Raghav, I have one doubt. Like during deployment, right? We need to store our JSON and SQLs in the core cloud, right?
Right,
Currently, while development, we are storing in our S3 bucket, right? So is
right.
there any process from Databricks? Can we directly, means from Databricks, we are storing our JSON SQL to the S3 bucket. So is there any way to store directly from Databricks to core cloud? Because currently, first deployment which we
No,
did, we try to do it from Git bash. So is it possible in Databricks we can do it?
no, we cannot do that.
We cannot, huh? Because I remember this, like I used to work previously in Azure DevOps, we can connect and store it, but here we don't have it, right?
Yeah, here we
For
don't have that option. Yes.
oh,
Yeah, anything else, Steve? I think we are over. Yeah, please reach out to me. I'm always available. Any questions or if you're new to this one, right? I'll help you. Maybe we can have a half an hour session and I can help you create the JSONs. Any issues also?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Raghav, for this session.
Yeah.
Really helpful.
Sure, Raghav. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Roman.